And so, but we started to hear noises. We were told that the Americans are marching in. It was a long, long convoy of all sorts of army vehicles. And the first thing that we saw was an American soldier was in a jeep and he was handing out candy bars. That's how the Americans came in. And they were clean and they were happy. They were waving to us. They came in as friends to rebuild Germany. The Russians came in to destroy us. The Americans were Christians. In those days, the children learned the Bible in school and they prayed in school. Those were different type of Americans. They were good Americans. And they came in to rebuild. They came to tell us that they are friends. But the American soldiers had very strict rules not to fraternize with the people because we were still the enemy. So they were not allowed to talk or have anything to do
But
with
you
them.
did a little fraternizing.
Yeah, but in secret.
So,
Yeah.
so how did you, an enemy, because really you were a Nazi's daughter,
Yes.
how did you end up working for an
I
American
don't
soldier?
know, because I spoke English. I knew English, so they gave me a job in the American military government. I
So
was
how did people end up getting jobs when the Americans
Oh.
invaded?
The first thing the Americans did is there were strong rules. Everybody had to stay at home, and everybody over 16 had to sign up to work. And they found out who we are, and they assigned us to work. The Russians came in to do a complete mess, to confuse the people's lives. The Americans came in to put order. Everybody had to sign up for work, and everybody had to obey the rules.
Okay, so you got a job as for what was he at the time? Was he a colonel yet, or was he?
No, he wasn't there yet. I was assigned to work for American military government.
Because you spoke English.
I had to keep the files,
Okay.
the letters in order.
Was that a good job?
Well, it was a very good job, but I did a lousy job. I didn't know enough English yet.
So
to
then
have
you
the
met.
military language.
When did you meet Opa?
And then one day, our boss left. We had, somebody was leaving the office, but we had to always work too late, because they didn't organize the work real well. So we got a new boss, and his name was Major Philip Steers, and he walked in to take over, to put things in order, and he did. So that after he came in, the work was done so that everybody could go home in time. Didn't have to do overtime.
And so that's how you met him.
Yeah, that's how.
You were fraternizing. So
Somehow
then,
he noticed me.
but then he left.
Well, he was reassigned to become the controller or the military governor of a Landkreis, of a part of Germany. And so when he was assigned, he took some people with him, the people that worked well with him.
Or
And
were
so,
pretty.
So he invited me. I was among some GIs. Oh, and I want to tell you about the GIs, that what fine men they were. They were doing their work. They kept their mind on their work. They were exemplary in the way they obeyed the rules and the way they did their work. It was exemplary.
So they were an example of what Americans
That's
should be.
right. America was an example in Second World War.
Okay.
Oh, I want to tell you one thing about the peace treaty.
Oh yes, we definitely have to mention.
General Eisenhower started the peace treaty, the Americans with the Germans, and he started the peace treaty with these words: "This is the Lord's doing, it is marvelous in our eyes." He gave all glory to God, because it was amazing what the Americans did. Can you imagine that they had to start from here to come across the ocean and have their guns and their parachutes and their clothes and everything. They had to have their jeeps and all their vehicles. They had to have everything. They brought everything across the ocean, and that's how they came. That it was a miracle that they won the war. I tell you.
And then the peace treaty, that was a very important because it made things more possible for you with Grandpa, right?
That's right, yes.
So then when Grandpa left to America, what
Yes,
happened?
He never told me that he had any plan for me. He just said goodbye. But then after he had to go to Bremerhaven to get on the ship to come back to America. He had to come here in Germany, and he was waiting for his ship to get back into America, and then he called me, and he told me that I'm making arrangements for you to come to America. Are you agreeable? And I said, yes. I didn't know that he had plans for me. And so that was a complete surprise, and so that's why I ended up in America.
And then you ended up in America as now you're going to be an immigrant because you were going to marry Opa.
That's right.
And then you were going to become an immigrant. And what did you think? What were your thoughts when you found out you could become an American?
I was thrilled, but it was the greatest happiness in my life. To leave behind the terror. Europe was all in a mess. Everything was in ruins. It was terrible in Europe. And then and can you imagine, after fighting the terrible war, America still had enough goods to send packages, food packages to Germany. My family received all sorts of good food packages helping from my grandpa to send them food.
So, then after that, then Grandpa went back to, or Opa went back to Austria?
Yes, and then he got a very interesting job. So the Americans continued to rebuild the countries, and it so happened Austria was one of them, and my husband was assigned to go back to Austria. You know where Austria is? Yes, you know. And so he got a very interesting job in Austria. Yes, and that's where Austria was a Russian zone. That was all Austria was a Russian zone, except in Vienna was assigned into four parts: the French, the English, the American, and the English and the Russian. So the four, and we had the Russian zone in Vienna. So I had to be very careful not to get involved in Russians, because they were sending Hungarians back to Hungary. They were catching the Hungarians and sending them back to Hungary.
So Hungary was still controlled by Russia even
That's
after
right.
the peace treaty.
For a long time. My country was in Russian hands for a long time. It was terrible.
And then tell them the story about after when you were expecting my father,
So
about what happened.
We lived in Vienna, and we were so happy to be in Vienna because my family were still in Germany. So we were able to go from Vienna to visit my family in Germany. And so we had to have a very special permit from the Russians to be able to travel through their zone, to travel to Munich. And so we had to have permission. And at one time we were traveling to visit my family, and the Russians caught us, and they didn't accept my paper. And so, but finally, it so happened that we had given some Russians a ride, and they said, let them go. So they allowed us to go to Munich, but then on the way back, my husband didn't want to meet the Russians, so he put me in the trunk of the car. I rolled in the trunk.
Pregnant.
Oh my
She
God.
was expecting my father. She was very pregnant at the
We're very
time.
afraid he was going to open the trunk. They were going to open the trunk. Oh my gosh.
No, because we had special sign that we are diplomatic side, that we're not allowed to open our trunk.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay,
I bet
well,
that was fun.
okay, so this kind of wraps up towards the end. We're after World War II, the peace treaties have been signed, and this is kind of where we're going to stop our talk because we're running out of time, and we want you guys to be able to ask any questions you might have. So if you have some questions, we'll go ahead and